making sure that our countries and others do what we said we would do. It's no accident that we started that follow-up in Italy, in France, and Germany this week, the three countries that I visited on this trip. In addition to being three of our closest partners and strongest allies, they're the only three countries that are members of the EU, NATO, and the G7. And their leadership will be crucial to delivering on our commitments. Those commitments include revitalizing NATO, preparing the alliance to deter adversaries and protect against a new range of threats, from cyber attacks to a rapidly changing climate. Delivering on the G7's pledge to get 1 billion COVID vaccines to people around the world. To invest in much-needed infrastructure projects in developing countries in a way that's open, sustainable, and empowers communities rather than saddling them with debt. Deepening U.S.-EU cooperation across a range of areas, including trade and technology in particular. Luigi was the first foreign minister to officially visit the State Department in the Biden-Harris administration, and that was just one of the many conversations that we've had, the work we've done together. In fact, we even wrote an op-ed together a few months ago. The reason that we're in such close communication is because the interests and values of Italy and the United States are closely aligned. We share a deep commitment to promoting democracy and human rights. We see the same big challenges on the horizon, and we recognize that we can't tackle them alone, and we shouldn't try to. We're better together, and that is what motivates our partnership. I have to tell you we're grateful for Italy's leadership in putting these challenges at the center of the global agenda. Italy made combating COVID-19 a focus of the G20 presidency this year, as well as ensuring that the recovery not only rebuilds our economies, but tackles inequities within and between countries that the pandemic has only worsened and put in starker relief. Italy is leading by example in pledging to donate $360 million in funds now to COVAX and sending 15 million vaccine doses from its own supply to lower and middle income countries around the world. And as you know, Luigi and I are co-hosting 2 high-level meetings tomorrow with our fellow foreign ministers focused on serious threats to international stability and security. Today we began, of course, with the meeting of the coalition to defeat ISIS and what we have to do to eradicate what's left of the terrorist group, and very critically, as Italy has been emphasizing, to prevent its emergence in places like Africa. Italy's not only contributed to this counterterrorism effort, but has demonstrated the way countries can take back nationals captured as foreign terrorist fighters. And this afternoon, we're also co-sponsoring a second meeting to address the urgent humanitarian crisis in Syria, particularly through broadening cross-border assistance, which is essential to reaching millions of Syrians who are in dire need of food, medicine, COVID vaccines, other life-saving aid. I'm announcing today that the United States is providing an additional $436 million in assistance, humanitarian assistance, to Syrians and the communities that host them. And that brings the total U.S. humanitarian assistance in response to the crisis in Syria to nearly $13.5 billion. We'll also use the meeting that's upcoming to refocus on a path to a political solution in Syria, the only way to provide the Syrian people with a foundation upon which to reconcile, make peace, and begin to rebuild. Of course, the relationship between the United States and Italy is about more than the challenges that we're facing and that we're dealing with today and tomorrow. Italy graciously hosts more than 34,000 U.S. service members, civilians, their family members, and the U.S. Navy's 6th Fleet headquarters in Naples. Our two-way trade in goods and services amounted to about $80 billion last year. Our direct investment in one another's economies creates hundreds of thousands of jobs. And we celebrated the 160th year of our diplomatic relationship. But we know that the ties between the people of our countries have existed for even longer than that. You see it in the 20 million Americans who proudly claim Italian heritage, in the Italian-American pockets in big cities and small towns across our country, in the Americans who come to Italy every year to study, learn the language, trace their roots, and just enjoy Italy. It's hard to see a part of America's national fabric that is not interwoven with threads from Italy, and we are so much richer for it. As President Biden has pointed out, we meet at a time when our democracies face a grave threat from adversaries outside who seek to undermine the free and open rules-based order that has long provided the foundation of our shared security and prosperity, and from skeptics inside who question whether democracy can make their lives better in tangible ways. I'm confident that the rights, opportunities, and ability to keep improving on itself that only democracy can provide cannot be matched by any other system. But I also know that if we're going to overcome these challenges and show that we can deliver, we have to come together, we have to band together with our closest allies and partners. For the United States, that means Italy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can now take a few questions. Possiamo adesso prendere qualche domanda, se è prenotato Matteo Alviti del TG1.
Buonasera, due questioni. La prima riguarda questa copresidenza. A 2 anni dall'ultimo incontro a Washington, ricordavate, c'è una cooperazione rafforzata tra Italia e Stati Uniti con questa presidenza? La seconda domanda invece riguarda il tavolo ristretto sulla Siria che si terrà fra poco. A proposito di multilateralismo, che anticipazioni potete darci sul tavolo, in particolare sul ruolo della Turchia anche in relazione alle SDF, la forza democratica siriana?
Grazie. Come prima cosa voglio dire che l'Italia è veramente onorata e molto soddisfatta di aver copresieduto stamattina la riunione ministeriale della coalizione anti-Daesh. È sicuramente stata un'altra dimostrazione del forte legame di cui parlava anche Tony poc'anzi tra Italia e Stati Uniti e della collaborazione che abbiamo sulle grandi questioni globali, come è normale che sia tra due alleati della forza dell'Italia e degli Stati Uniti. Nella lotta al terrorismo internazionale nessuno può farcela da solo ed è per questo che la cooperazione tra Italia e Stati Uniti è assolutamente strategica. Credo che sia anche un chiaro riconoscimento del ruolo di primo piano che l'Italia svolge in questa coalizione, anzi colgo l'occasione per ringraziare tutte le nostre donne e uomini in divisa che in questo momento sono le nostre forze armate che sono all'estero in missioni impegnate a contrastare il terrorismo. E ovviamente questa riunione della coalizione avviene in un momento nel quale la paura che l'ISIS, che Daesh possa rafforzarsi di nuovo è alta. E questa preoccupazione porta a non abbassare la guardia da parte nostra e anzi è stata anche l'occasione per dirci che dobbiamo aumentare la nostra azione come coalizione non spostando il focus, ma aumentando le aree dove noi focalizziamo la nostra attenzione. Quindi non solo Medio Oriente, ma Africa, in particolare Sahel, ma anche Mozambico, anche Corno d'Africa. E la riunione sulla Siria di oggi, che copresiederemo insieme, è sicuramente un altro importante momento, perché è un'occasione di confronto che può permettere ai paesi più interessati ad avere la pace in Siria, può permettere ai nostri interlocutori della riunione di oggi di poter pianificare i prossimi step. Come sapete, l'Italia sostiene pienamente il percorso delle Nazioni Unite con l'inviato speciale Pedersen, ma sappiamo anche che lo stesso processo delle Nazioni Unite e il Comitato Costituzionale sono necessariamente delle iniziative che hanno bisogno del supporto dei principali alleati del multilateralismo e Italia e Stati Uniti, oltre ad essere sul piano bilaterale due paesi amici che condividono valori e condividono iniziative insieme in questa fase stiamo supportando pienamente il multilateralismo che crediamo sia il principale strumento per affrontare le crisi nel mondo.
And I fully subscribe to everything that Luigi just said, and I think it's a reflection of the fact that when it comes to our own cooperation, both working together bilaterally but also in multilateral institutions, where you see an extremely active Italy playing a leadership role. It's a reflection of the fact that we both understand that there's a greater imperative now than at any other time that I can think of for cooperation among like-minded countries. Because the simple reality is that not a single one of the issues that we have to deal with that are having an impact on the lives of our citizens in Italy, in the United States, around the world, whether it's climate change, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the disruptive impact of new technologies, whether it's the threat posed by terrorism, not a single one can be effectively addressed by any one country acting on its own, even the United States, even Italy. And so we're especially grateful at this moment to have such strong allies, partners, and friends as Italy who are taking the lead. And that reflects itself in the work that we're doing together. It reflects itself in the work that we're doing in these international groupings, institutions. Today is powerful evidence of that. And just on Syria, we'll have more to say, I'm sure, after the meeting. There is an absolute premium here, too, on making sure that we're doing everything possible to get humanitarian assistance to people in need in Syria. And that's going to be a focus of our conversations. But of course, that's the immediate imperative, but the larger objective is to pursue a lasting resolution and peace that Syria so desperately needs. And so we'll make clear our support for a nationwide ceasefire, both to ensure the safe delivery of assistance, but also to try to create more of a foundation upon which the future of Syria can move forward. But we'll have more to say, I'm sure, after the meeting.
Our first question goes to Kylie Atwood of CNN.
Thank you. Foreign Minister, I'd like to start with you. You've said in the past that Italy and China need to forge closer ties, and Italy has been a supporter of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Does Italy today maintain steadfast support for the Belt and Road Initiative? And what do you make of Secretary Blinken saying that a Chinese-led world order would be profoundly illiberal in nature?
Vorrei essere molto chiaro, anzi la ringrazio per questa domanda, perché mi consente di chiarire ancora una volta la posizione dell'Italia dal punto di vista sia delle alleanze geopolitiche, sia delle alleanze dei valori, che con gli Stati Uniti coincidono. Noi siamo alleati degli Stati Uniti, siamo partner della NATO e dell'Unione Europea, e questa non è soltanto un'alleanza strategica, è un'alleanza di valori che permette alle nostre democrazie di poter affrontare con credibilità questioni come quella della violazione dei diritti umani, dove l'Italia è stata in prima linea sia nei consessi delle Nazioni Unite a livello multilaterale, nel sostenere l'ultima proposta, ad esempio, del Canada, sia in Unione Europea, quando abbiamo sostenuto la posizione di sanzioni rispetto alle violazioni dei diritti umani, e sia anche durante l'ultimo G7 in UK, dove i nostri leader hanno discusso di come rafforzare l'azione anche delle Nazioni Unite sulla violazione dei diritti umani. E io credo che se tutti quanti nel mondo ci diciamo a favore dell'azione del multilateralismo e delle Nazioni Unite, io non credo che oggi ci sia una questione di contrapposizioni tra paesi. C'è un'azione delle Nazioni Unite che si sta portando avanti attraverso anche l'alta rappresentante Bachelet sul tema della verifica delle violazioni dei diritti umani, e credo che quella persona, quella rappresentante delle Nazioni Unite, debba avere la possibilità di verificare se ci sono state violazioni dei diritti umani. Quindi su questo, voglio dirlo chiaramente, l'Italia è un forte partner commerciale della Cina, abbiamo relazioni storiche, ma che non sono assolutamente paragonabili né vanno ad interferire con l'alleanza di valori che abbiamo con gli Stati Uniti, nella NATO e nell'Unione Europea.
And Secretary Blinken, could I just follow up with you? On China specifically, isn't Italy's support for China's Belt and Road Initiative inherently contradictory to their support for the Build Back Better effort that you guys just launched together last week? And then on your meeting earlier today with Pope Francis, were there any discussions of President Biden receiving Holy Communion? And on coronavirus, Pope Francis has assessed that those who refuse to get the COVID-19 vaccine are suicidal. Do you agree?
Kylie, I was about to thank you for addressing your question to Foreign Minister Maio, so, but I'll reserve that. I think what Luigi said with regard to our approach to China is a very good answer to the question, and one that I would simply reiterate. Look, I think what you've seen across the board in recent weeks, particularly at the G7, NATO, the US-EU summit, is an increasing convergence of views among the United States and our European partners and allies about China. And I think we all recognize the complexity of the relationship, the fact that it is, for all of us, among the most consequential in the world. And that complexity manifests itself in the fact that I think we all agree that the relationship has, as I've said many times, adversarial aspects, competitive ones, and cooperative ones too. And the common denominator is approaching these challenges, whether it's adversarial, whether it's competitive, whether it's cooperative, together. And increasingly, that's exactly what you're seeing. When it comes to the initiative that we took at the G7, the Build Back Better World, Italy is a participant in that. We're going to work over the next months to move that forward. And the point here is that there is an imperative here too around the world for investment in infrastructure in countries that are low and middle income, but it needs to be done in a way that's a race to the top, not a race to the bottom. Italy and our other partners are going to be a full participant in that, and I think that will demonstrate itself in the months ahead. With regard to the meeting with His Holiness the Pope, let me just say, on a personal level, what an honor it was. The meeting was extremely warm and very wide-ranging. We covered a lot of ground, and I certainly don't want to speak for His Holiness, but just speaking for myself and speaking for the United States, I was very gratified by the meeting, and gratified as well by the strong leadership of His Holiness on the pandemic, on climate change, on the challenge that we have to address when it comes to irregular migration and refugees, and more broadly, and maybe most important of all, his leadership on the basic proposition that we have to stand for human dignity in everything we do to the best of our ability. One of the luxuries of my job is that I don't do domestic politics, and so I'll simply say that it was truly a wonderful and memorable moment to have had the opportunity to speak to His Holiness and to have such a warm and wide-ranging conversation.
And can I just follow up, do you agree with Pope Francis's assessment that those who refuse the COVID-19 vaccine are engaging in a suicidal effort?
I'm not going to speak for the Pope in any way. I think we strongly believe in the importance of vaccination, of seeing as many people, not just in our own countries, but around the world, get vaccinated, and to do so as quickly as possible. And of course, one of the reasons that we came together at the G7 to push 1 billion vaccine doses out around the world is because of the absolute importance of this initiative and the need to be vaccinated. Look, here is the reality that we're faced with. As long as the virus is replicating somewhere, it's likely to be mutating. And as long as it's mutating, there is the distinct possibility that it comes back and bites even those who have been vaccinated. So we have to get ahead of this. And the way to get ahead of this is with the fastest possible vaccination around the world. That's why Italy and the United States are working so closely together to make sure that we get vaccines out there.
Grazie. Diamo ora la parola ad Annalisa Rapanà, agenzia ANSA.
Buonasera, volevo chiedere al Ministro Di Maio, lei ha parlato della necessità per la coalizione di prestare particolare importanza al continente africano e ancora più in particolare alla regione del Sahel. Volevo chiederle se questo approccio, questo ulteriore passo è condiviso, in quale misura, in quale forma e perché pone così tanto l'accento su questo tema, qual è l'importanza di questo ulteriore passo per la coalizione. Grazie.
Grazie. Velocemente nel dirle che oggi c'è stato ovviamente come prima cosa il supporto degli Stati Uniti su questa proposta di focalizzare una parte dell'attenzione della coalizione anti-Daesh sulla regione del Sahel e più in generale sull'Africa, se pensiamo ad altri paesi che comunque sono colpiti. Sia nelle mie recenti visite in Niger e in Mali, ma in generale sappiamo in tutti i consessi internazionali c'è una grande richiesta d'aiuto da parte di quei paesi e di quelle comunità. Molti villaggi sono nelle mani delle organizzazioni terroristiche e sappiamo che l'estensione territoriale di questi paesi è veramente fuori dalla nostra immaginazione. L'Italia ha degli accordi bilaterali, ad esempio, con alcuni di questi paesi, con cui cerchiamo di combattere il cambiamento climatico scongiurando la desertificazione, che è una ragione che provoca la povertà, l'abbassamento del livello di vita, perché ruba terreno all'agricoltura. Allo stesso tempo lavoriamo con loro anche sul sostegno ai rifugiati, con l'UNHCR, che ha delle sedi e dei punti con cui permette a queste persone, attraverso corridoi umanitari legali, di venire in Italia quando ne hanno bisogno. Il vero problema è che il contrasto al terrorismo ha bisogno di un approccio olistico. Oggi la coalizione, con l'esperienza che ha, è in grado di affrontare in maniera olistica questo problema. Le istituzioni di quei paesi si stanno indebolendo sempre di più, proprio sotto gli attacchi delle cellule terroristiche. E in questo momento proteggere il Sahel significa anche proteggere la sicurezza dell'Europa e fermare trafficanti di armi e di uomini soprattutto. Questo riusciremo, credo, ad ottenerlo step by step, ma abbiamo in vista dei prossimi mesi un punto di partenza che è la volontà di questa coalizione, perché tutti i paesi che sono intervenuti hanno dato sostegno a questa proposta, l'idea della coalizione, l'iniziativa della coalizione di coordinare le iniziative esistenti e allo stesso tempo una chiara roadmap per aiutare a scongiurare la proliferazione di queste cellule terroristiche. Ciò non significa smettere di combattere Daesh in Siria o in Iraq, assolutamente. Significa solo che oggi, a distanza di anni da quando abbiamo sconfitto sul territorio Daesh in Medio Oriente, stiamo vedendo che molte cellule terroristiche stanno proliferando in regioni come il Sahel, dove passano le principali rotte di migrazione che arrivano in Europa e dove i cambiamenti climatici, la povertà e il terrorismo stanno provocando milioni e milioni di poveri.
And if I could, let me just say very clearly that we strongly support Italy's initiative to make sure that the coalition against Daesh focuses its expertise on Africa, while keeping our eye closely on Syria and on Iraq. For all of the reasons that Luigi just cited, this is of significant importance, and I think we heard a strong consensus today on the part of our coalition partners to do just that.
Our final question goes to Michael Crowley of the New York Times.
Thank you. If I may, I have a question for you both on today's meeting, and then another for each of you separately. For you both, did today's meeting make you any more optimistic about more quickly resolving the fate of the ISIS fighters and their families now held in Syria and Iraq? And specifically, did any nations make new commitments to repatriate foreign fighters? For Secretary Blinken, my question to you is on last night's U.S. airstrikes on militia groups in Iraq and Syria. The Biden administration conducted similar strikes in February, calling them a deterrent, but attacks on U.S. forces continued, prompting this second strike. Is the U.S. prepared to escalate its response if these strikes do not deter continued attacks on our personnel? And do you hold Iran responsible for these ongoing attacks? And finally, for Minister Maio, the Biden administration recently waived sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia to Germany. Italy has previously expressed concern about the project's impact on European energy security dynamics. Are you disappointed that the Biden administration is not doing more to block the pipeline's completion? Thank you.
Voglio cominciare dicendo che la riunione di oggi ci ha consentito anche di fare il punto su diverse iniziative che abbiamo nella lotta a Daesh. Non sono solo iniziative militari, c'è il gruppo di lavoro contro la propaganda di Daesh che ci preoccupa altrettanto, quella che sta radicalizzando le persone attraverso gli strumenti telematici, attraverso il web, ad esempio. E l'altro gruppo di lavoro che noi co-presiediamo insieme a Stati Uniti ed Arabia Saudita è quello sulle fonti di finanziamento delle organizzazioni terroristiche. E la riunione con il full group che abbiamo avuto oggi è una riunione che ci ha permesso anche di identificare le prossime date nelle quali sia sul tema della propaganda sia sul tema del finanziamento andremo avanti. Però lasciatemi dire che poi il miglior modo per riuscire a contrastare le organizzazioni terroristiche, in particolare Daesh, è rafforzare le istituzioni locali. E su questo il lavoro che stiamo facendo come Stati membri della coalizione, ma più in generale paesi e persone che credono nel multilateralismo, è quello di aumentare gli stanziamenti della cooperazione allo sviluppo, una cosa in cui l'Italia ha sempre creduto, che ha rappresentato anche la postura dell'Italia in molti teatri, e vorrei dire anche su questo che l'Italia aumenterà il suo sforzo di cooperazione allo sviluppo per aiutare ad esempio le istituzioni afghane, perché il ritiro della parte militare dall'Afghanistan non significa abbandonare l'Afghanistan per l'Italia, ma significa anzi dover profondere uno sforzo in più nel rafforzare le istituzioni attraverso cooperazione allo sviluppo, attraverso programmi di training della polizia e delle forze locali. Detto questo, per quanto riguarda il tema della diversificazione delle fonti energetiche, l'Italia ha concluso da poco il Trans-Adriatic Pipeline proprio per differenziare le fonti di approvvigionamento energetico, in particolare per quanto riguarda il gas. E come Italia continuiamo a credere che per quanto riguarda l'energia e la produzione dell'energia dobbiamo investire sempre di più in nuove tecnologie e diversificazione delle fonti di energia con cui produciamo la nostra energia. Abbiamo in questo momento diversi programmi europei, penso anche a quello della produzione dell'idrogeno. Io guardo avanti al futuro dell'Unione Europea e dei paesi dell'Unione Europea insieme con politiche comuni che permettano attraverso le energie rinnovabili e attraverso strumenti di transizione come il gas di arrivare a diminuire il più possibile la dipendenza da fonti energetiche non nostre.
Thank you, Michael. So on the question of foreign terrorist fighters, we spent some time talking about that today in the meeting. And there is a need for countries to take action to repatriate foreign fighters that come from those countries, to prosecute them where appropriate, to rehabilitate and reintegrate them where appropriate. And there is some urgency to this. I noted in the meeting a number of countries that have taken very concrete steps, including, by the way, Italy, as well as the United States, but also a number of other countries, for example, in Central Asia, as well as in the Balkans, that have taken important steps. But more work clearly needs to be done. The number of foreign terrorist fighters who are in detention in Syria is significant. The larger group that comprises their family members, women, children, is also a significant concern. And I think the strong message coming out of today's meeting was the need for countries to do more to that end. So we'll see going forward as countries, I hope, step up to this need. It is something of tremendous importance in terms of making sure that we're getting people off of and away from the battlefield, and hopefully to a place where they will either face further justice or, in some cases at least, hopefully can be rehabilitated and reintegrated. But we'll see the results in the weeks and months ahead. With regard to the strike last night, at the President's direction, U.S. military forces conducted airstrikes against facilities used by Iranian-backed militia groups in the Iraq-Syria border region. They targeted facilities used by groups responsible for recent attacks on U.S. interests in Iraq. Specifically, they targeted operational and weapons storage facilities at 2 locations in Syria, 1 location in Iraq, both with very close to the border between the countries. Several Iran-backed militia groups, including KH, including KSS, used these facilities. We have been very clear, the President has been very clear throughout, that we will act to protect U.S. personnel. And given these ongoing attacks that you referred to by Iran-backed groups targeting our interests in Iraq, he directed further military action, we've taken action previously, to disrupt and deter these attacks. We took necessary, appropriate, deliberate action that is designed to limit the risk of escalation, but also to send a clear and unambiguous deterrent message. This action in self-defense to do what's necessary to prevent further attacks, I think sends a very important and strong message, and I hope very much that it is received by those who are intended to receive it.
If I may just follow up, Mr. Secretary, the first airstrikes were described as having a deterrent purpose and appear not to have served that purpose. Are you prepared to describe what action the United States might take should the militia attacks continue? Would the U.S. escalate its response?
I think we've demonstrated, both with the actions taken last night and actions taken previously, that the President is fully prepared to act and act appropriately and deliberately to protect U.S. interests, to protect our people, to protect our personnel. And again, I would hope that the message sent by the strikes last night will be heard and deter future action.
And the one other part of my question, I had asked whether you hold Iran responsible for these attacks.
Well, a number of the groups involved in recent attacks are militia that are backed by Iran.
Grazie mille, dobbiamo concludere qui. Grazie a tutti e buon lavoro.
Mr. Blinken? Mr. Blinken? We have to ask. I'm from Kurdistan, Iran.
You going this way?
Yep.